He's the firm's head of trading and derivative strategy. Joe, great to have you with us. We've been hearing the stories about all the money flowing into Bitcoin, and I think the question is for the market, from a market standpoint, is where do you think that flow is coming from? Is it, out of tech into Bitcoin as it once was thought?
So here's what's interesting, Melissa, is there's been volatility at multiple sectors. It's kind of hard to say specifically, but where we've seen weakness technically would be energy, materials, and real estate. I think that's where you've seen kind of some of that movement out of those sectors and a little bit more into Bitcoin, specifically materials. I don't know if you can consider Bitcoin a replacement for gold, but there's been some investor talk about that.
Is there more interest in sort of the Bitcoin ETFs or in the Bitcoin-related stocks like a MicroStrategy or a Marathon?
If you look at the Bitcoin ETFs, those are the most heavily traded because it's given access to retail. And MicroStrategy is doing the same thing. We traded 800,000 contracts today in terms of the options. So it's been a really big surprise and something that retail has really kind of adopted is the ability to kind of trade it through options and trade it through the ETFs.
Joe, the evolution of the retail trade over the last 5 years is astonishing, I think, and good for them. But, their ability to go from sector to sector and sort of turn on a dime, I'm sure you see it there, their just navigation of what's been an interesting market.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we look at our stacks report, basically it takes monthly movements and monthly buys and sells in client accounts. We do see that there's volatility in that sector move. I'll give you a perfect example. October saw information technology being the biggest sell, and then November was the biggest buy. So, it's hard sometimes to kind of sit there and hold those positions. Maybe you should, but we've seen our retail traders really step up and trade those products quite a bit.
Hey, Joe, it's Tim. How about Mag 7 stocks as funding vehicles for the rest of the rally? And what are you seeing? Because I would have sat here a year ago and said, I don't think you're going to see 6 stocks be 30% or 7 stocks be 30% of the S&P ever again. They largely are. It's weakening, but it's happening.
I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I really do. When I look at, our biggest buys and sells, we're starting to see kind of the Mag 7 roll up. Two names that come to mind right away would be Palantir. And then earlier you talked about MicroStrategy. Those are two, new entrants into kind of our net buys or our biggest buys for the month. So you're starting to see names like Tesla, Apple kind of fade a little bit just because you haven't seen Apple break out. It's kind of, it's at a new high, but it is within a range. And I think retail investors are looking at that and looking for other opportunities.